clean this up with a chisel, but I think you get the idea. Alright guys, so things are going pretty good so far. I'm going to use this hole saw to cut a tenon into the end here. I want to get that started now before I shave this down anymore, because I want to make sure this thing's as straight as possible. I need some more tripods. So I think you guys get the idea. I got a tenon started there. I've got a lot more material to remove, and I'm probably just going to use a combination of my hand plane, my spoke shave, and maybe a chisel, whatever I need to use to make it happen. Making great progress on the handle. Shaved quite a bit off there, but it's feeling real nice in the hand. Now let's work on the hammerhead. Now it's time to eyeball where this hole's gonna go. A little bit awkward, but I think I'll manage to get it pretty close. Well, let's see what happens. I'm gonna do this on my drill press. I'm just using the tape so that this thing doesn't shift on me. It's not really meant to hold this in place. I'm gonna use my hands for that. I was hungry. All right, not the safest method, but I think it'll work. I don't recommend you guys do this. Now, I'm not recommending that drill press setup I had. It's a little bit sketchy, but I did get a nice start to this hole. I just need to go a little bit deeper, and I'll do that by hand with the hand drill. So I got the hole 2.5 inches deep, which I think is going to be deep enough. And I thought I'd just quickly talk about these hole saws here. The one that I use for the tenon is 1.75 inches. And the one I use for the hole is 1.5 inches. And I gotta say, I am very impressed with how closely these fit together. Check that out. Almost fits perfectly. It's too tight, so I'm just gonna have to shave off a little bit with my spoke shave. All right, let's see how this fits. I did sand the entire handle, nice and smooth. This goes in about 2.5 inches. Oh, there we go. A really nice fitting joint there. Very cool. Neat little trick there. I'm not done the hammer yet. I'm going to do some chisel work on here, oil this thing up, Should look pretty cool once it's done. And by the way, I'm going to glue this with 5-minute epoxy. Probably do that off camera. And I'm just going to use this chisel here to just carve some texture into the hammer. Unnecessary, but kind of just want to practice different things. It's probably going to take about an hour. Random scrap wood project today. I found this in my bin. Let's see what I can do with it. I'm going to use that log and this scrap piece of wood here. Try to make something useful. I just realized this is end grain, so I can't pop that out, but I'll just use the spade bit, drill into it, and take all that middle part out there. My bad. Alright, let's get rid of this nasty stuff here. Something I was trying out a little while ago. I think I'll just chisel it away and we'll be good to go. Looking much better now. So I know I said I was going to try to use this piece of wood, but then I remembered about my stick collection, and I thought I'd better go through this first. And I found the perfect stick. Look how cool that is.
Wow.
Really neat bark on there. Let's see if it passes the strength test, though. Strong enough. Let's use it. All right, looking good. I cut the stick down, feels good in the hand, got rid of all these sharp knobs. Now I just want to make sure the bark stays on here, so I think I'm going to varnish it with spar varnish. Hopefully that'll work. Now because I went rogue and switched to using a stick instead of my original plan, well, the tenon's a little bit too small. But no worries, I've got a fix for that. Epoxy and twine. All right guys, 2 coats of varnish, looking pretty good. Nice and comfortable in the hand. I've got my epoxy and twine fix here. Let me show you how hard it is. Rock hard, and it's going to fit much tighter into here. Once I load this thing up with epoxy, we're going to have a nice, very tight fit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, get some oil on here, show you the end result. Oh yeah! So for those of you that don't deal with epoxy very often, I just want to show you something. It dries rock hard like plastic. So this thing's going to be nice and solid in there. All right, let's get some linseed oil on here. So I kind of hummed and hawed about this for a few days. The linseed oil is nice and dry, but the thing is, when I was putting that linseed oil on there and it was all wet and glossy, I really liked the way this looked. So I think I might put a gloss finish on here. I know some people prefer just having linseed oil and wax on their handles. It's kind of the more traditional approach, but you know, sometimes you just need a little gloss. I'm actually using a wipe-on poly, Minwax wipe-on poly, and I'm painting it on. Just gets a thicker initial coat on there. More coats later on with probably just a rag. All right, I finally finished it. It took like 5 days of varnishing. Oh my God. I did end up switching it to a spar varnish, much thicker. The wipe-on poly was just too thin. So I put a couple coats of the linseed oil at first, and then a couple coats of the wipe-on poly, 3 coats of spar varnish, and then a final coat of wipe-on poly. And each coat takes many hours to dry. Totally not worth it. I think in the future I should just get better at using a combination of linseed oil and a nice wood wax and maybe learn how to buff them out. Anyways, just want to say a huge thank you to all the Patreon supporters. It's been a huge help. Thank you very much, guys. I know I don't post on there very often, but it does help to keep the overall channel going and the ideas flowing. I know that was cheesy, but wow, that actually looks pretty good there. If you zoom in though, there are some dust nibs on there. It's still curing, and I do still need to maybe buff those out a little bit, but I'm gonna have to wait probably a couple weeks to cure that. I like the overall feel of it. It's not too heavy. I think this is Douglas fir, and this is actually cedar. I thought it was yew wood. Just looking at the grain there, I was a little bit bummed out that it wasn't hardwood. I think maybe it makes sense to have a softer wood so it doesn't damage my project. Now, for the little mallet. Nice. Oh God, that gloss does look cool, doesn't it? The bark doesn't feel too hard, but I think it's gonna stay on there. It is a nice feeling in the hand though, for sure. Not the biggest mallet, but I do have a bunch of these little chisels, and I think it'll come in handy for some small detail work. So that's kind of why I went for this one. Nice, light, small size. I'm not sure if you want or not, but I'll take some pictures of these and I'll put measurements on Patreon. And, you know, just in case you wanted to know the size of all these. The handle's a little bit fat, but kind of feels good. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Hit the sub button, and we'll see you next time.